The morning sky over New York burst into colors as 7 massive ships broke through the clouds. They were smooth, silver discs that seemed to float rather than fly. People stopped in the streets, cars halted, and the world held its breath. After decades of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, the answer had arrived. Similar scenes played out across the globe: London, Tokyo, Moscow, Rio, Cairo, and Sydney. The alien ships hovered silently, waiting. In the Pentagon's Emergency Command Center, Major Jack Walker stood with his arms crossed, watching the largest screen as it showed live footage from around the world. "Major Walker," General Phillips said, "you've been selected." Jack turned to face his superior. "Selected for what, sir?" "To meet them. The President and the UN Security Council agree. Your background in both military tactics and diplomatic relations makes you our best choice." Jack's face remained calm, but his heart raced. 42 years old with graying temples and eyes that had seen 3 wars, he never imagined becoming humanity's first ambassador to an alien species. "When do I leave?" he asked simply. "They've requested a representative in 1 hour. At Central Park." The alien who greeted Jack introduced himself as Commander Tiro of the Vex Exploration Fleet. He stood slightly taller than a human, with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the sunlight. His eyes were large, entirely black, and he had no visible nose, just small slits where one would be. "Major Walker," Tiro said, his voice surprisingly warm and clear, "we are honored to finally meet the people of Earth. We have observed your planet for some time." Jack nodded respectfully. "The honor is ours, Commander. Humanity has long wondered if we were alone." Tiro smiled. At least Jack thought it was a smile. "Not only are you not alone, but you are invited to join a community of civilizations that spans this arm of the galaxy." Over the next 3 weeks, the world changed faster than anyone could have imagined. The Vex shared technologies that promised to end disease, hunger, and energy shortages. They spoke of peace, cooperation, and a new age for humanity. But something bothered Jack. Small inconsistencies in Tiro's explanations. The way the alien guards watched humans with what looked like contempt. The areas of their ships that remained off-limits. "You worry too much," said Dr. Lisa Grant, the lead scientist working with Vex technology. "Look at this medical scanner they've given us. It can detect cancer at a cellular level. They're helping us." Jack picked up the small device. "Have we taken one apart? Do we understand how it works?" Lisa sighed. "Not completely, but that's to be expected. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours." "That's my point," Jack said. "We're accepting gifts we don't understand." 1 month after first contact, Jack was invited aboard the Vex mothership for what Tiro called a special announcement. As his helicopter approached the massive vessel hovering over the Atlantic Ocean, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of dread growing in his stomach. The inside of the ship was stunning, flowing architecture that seemed almost alive, lights that adjusted to match human comfort levels, and gravity that felt perfectly normal despite being generated artificially. Tiro led Jack to a large chamber where several other Vex waited. They were dressed in more elaborate clothing than the ones Jack had met on Earth. One of them, wearing a red sash, stepped forward. "Major Walker, I am High Commander Nex of the Vex Dominion. Your species has been most cooperative in our evaluation process." Jack straightened. "Evaluation process? I was under the impression we were establishing diplomatic relations." Nex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Diplomatic relations are for equals, Major. Your species is remarkably primitive. Then why offer us technology? Why pretend to?" "We do not consider it pretending," Tiro interrupted. "The devices we provided served 2 purposes. They delivered the promised benefits while simultaneously mapping your cities, monitoring your communications, and analyzing your defensive capabilities." The cold realization washed over Jack. This was never about friendship. "Correct," Nex said. "Though we find your species fascinating, You are also unpredictable and dangerous. The Vex Dominion has determined that humanity requires management. Before Jack could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. One of the walls transformed into a viewing screen, showing major cities around the world. Jack watched in horror as smaller Vex ships, hundreds of them, descended from the motherships. Beams of intense blue light shot downward, and buildings began to crumble. People ran through streets as dust and debris filled the air. "What are you doing?" Jack lunged toward Nex, but invisible forces held him in place before he could take 3 steps. "Removing your capacity to resist," Nex replied calmly. "Military installations first, then government centers, then communications networks. Quite standard procedure, really." Jack struggled against the invisible restraint. "You won't get away with this. Humans don't surrender easily." "Yes, we've noticed that unfortunate trait in your historical records," Tiro said. "It is precisely why we determined this approach was necessary. Your species values freedom over stability. You fight amongst yourselves constantly. You would never accept guidance willingly." On the screen, Jack saw the Pentagon take a direct hit. Then the White House. Similar scenes played out with government buildings in other countries. "You've been planning this from the beginning," Jack said, his voice hollow. "Of course," Nex replied. "We never make first contact without a complete conquest strategy." Jack closed his eyes, not wanting to watch more destruction, but Tiro grabbed his chin and forced him to look. "Observe, Major Walker. Your world is being remade. In time, humans will serve a useful purpose in the Dominion. The resistant ones will be removed. The compliant ones will be rewarded. Order will replace chaos." Jack watched as the world he knew disappeared in fire and smoke. His training told him to stay calm, to survive, to find a way to fight back. But for now, all he could do was watch. "Take him to detention," Nex ordered. "He will be valuable in understanding human psychology. And Major," he added as guards moved toward Jack, "consider your position carefully. Those who assist the Dominion can have comfortable lives." As Jack was dragged away, he turned back to meet Nex's black eyes. "Remember this moment," Jack said quietly. "Remember that you didn't just attack our cities. You created enemies who will never forget or forgive. And that will be your downfall." The last thing Jack saw before being removed from the chamber was Earth burning on the view screen, and Tiro's dismissive gesture that said clearly, "Humans might talk bravely, but their defeat was already complete." Little did the Vex know, they had just awakened something they had never truly understood: humanity's capacity for revenge. 3 years passed like a slow nightmare. Jack Walker wiped sweat from his forehead as he swung his pickaxe into the rocky wall of the mine. His once neat military haircut had grown long and wild, and his formerly clean-shaven face now carried a thick beard streaked with gray. A thin metal collar around his neck blinked with a steady green light, the Vex control device that would shock him if he stopped working or went somewhere forbidden. "Water break," called out a female voice behind him. Jack turned to see Anna Reed approaching with a small container. Once a top NASA scientist, Anna was now just another prisoner in the Vex mining colony called Outpost 7, a frozen moon circling a gas giant far from Earth. "Thanks," Jack said, taking a careful sip. Water was rationed strictly. Anna glanced around to make sure no Vex guards were nearby. "Ben didn't come back from processing yesterday." Jack's face hardened. Ben Morrow had been a civilian engineer before the invasion, and one of the few friends they had made in this hellhole. Processing was what the Vex called it when they took humans away for their experiments. No one knew exactly what happened, but most never returned. "That's the 3rd one this month," Jack whispered. "They're taking more of us than before." Anna nodded, her once bright eyes now dull with exhaustion, but still carrying the spark of intelligence. "I think I know why. Come to my bunk after shift. I have something to show you." The prisoners' quarters were little more than metal boxes stacked 3 high, each barely big enough for a thin mattress and a small storage container. The Vex believed that uncomfortable prisoners were less likely to cause trouble. They were wrong. Anna pulled a small, flat stone from beneath her mattress. To Jack's surprise, she pressed her thumb against it, and tiny lights flickered across its surface. "What is that?" he asked, keeping his voice low. "A data tablet I built from parts I stole from the processing center when I was cleaning there last month." Anna's eyes gleamed with pride. The Vex don't think we're smart enough to understand their technology. Another mistake they're making. Jack looked at the small device with new respect for Anna. "What's on it?" "Everything I could download in the few minutes I had. Guard patrol schedules, facility maps, communication protocols." She paused, her voice dropping even lower. "And something else, something about us, about humans, that the Vex are afraid of." Jack leaned closer. "Tell me." "They can't read our minds," Anna said simply. Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" "The Vex use a kind of mind-scanning technology on all the species they conquer. It lets them detect rebellion before it happens. But human brains—" She smiled for the first time in months. "Our brains have some kind of neurological structure that blocks their scans. We're the only species they've encountered with this trait." Hope, an emotion Jack had nearly forgotten, stirred in his chest. "So they can't tell what we're planning?" "Not entirely. They can monitor our actions, our words, our behavior patterns, but our actual thoughts remain private. That's why they're increasing the processing. They're trying to figure out how to break through." Jack ran a hand through his tangled hair. "This changes everything, Anna." "There's more," she said, tapping the tablet again. "I've been mapping the guard patrol patterns. There's a 7-minute window every third cycle when the path to the shuttle bay is completely unguarded." Jack looked at her with new eyes. The tired prisoner was gone, replaced by the brilliant scientist she had once been. "Are you suggesting what I think you are?" Anna's face was deadly serious. "I'm saying we have a chance, Jack. A small one. But we need a distraction." 2 weeks later, their opportunity came. A shipment of new prisoners arrived. Humans captured from a resistance group that had been hiding in the mountains of what was once Canada. The entire outpost was busy processing them. "Now," Jack whispered to Anna as they worked in the mess hall, washing dishes after the evening meal. "Tell the others. 30 minutes." Anna nodded and slipped away. Over the past 2 weeks, they had carefully shared their plan with 10 other prisoners they trusted. Enough to create chaos, not enough to risk exposure. Exactly 30 minutes later, the first explosion rocked the facility. Tom, a former demolitions expert, had created a crude bomb from cleaning chemicals in the maintenance bay. As alarms blared, prisoners began running in all directions, some genuinely panicked, others following the plan. "This way," Jack called to Anna as guards rushed toward the explosion site. They ran in the opposite direction, toward the small shuttle bay where supply ships docked. 2 guards appeared in their path. Jack didn't hesitate. 3 years of rage fueled his attack as he tackled the first guard, while Anna grabbed the shock baton from the second and used it against him. Jack quickly stripped the fallen guard of his weapon and communication device. "Let's move." They reached the shuttle bay just as another explosion sounded from the opposite side of the facility. The second distraction, right on schedule. A small Vex transport ship sat on the landing pad, its ramp down. "Can you fly it?" Jack asked as they raced up the ramp. Anna grinned. "I've been studying their control systems for months. It won't be pretty, but I can get us out of here." Jack sealed the ramp while Anna went to work on the controls. Alarms screamed across the outpost as the engines hummed to life. "They're locking down the bay doors," Anna shouted. Jack found what looked like weapons controls and hit them without hesitation. Energy beams shot from the ship, blasting the bay doors. The gap was small, but it might be enough. "Hold on," Anna yelled as she pushed the ship forward, scraping through the damaged doors and into the freedom of space. Behind them, Outpost 7 grew smaller. Jack knew the Vex would send pursuit ships, but for this moment, The first moment of freedom in 3 years, he allowed himself to feel something close to joy. "Where to?" he asked, strapping himself into the co-pilot seat. Anna's hands flew over the controls. "I downloaded all the data I could about other mining colonies. There are at least 7 more, all with human prisoners." Jack nodded, understanding immediately. "We start building our army." He found the communication system, and on a channel he knew would reach all Vex frequencies, broadcast a simple message. "This is Major Jack Walker of Earth. To all humans who can hear this, we are not defeated. We are not broken. Remember Earth. Remember what they took from us. And know that we're coming for you. And then we're coming for them." As the ship accelerated into the darkness, Jack looked at Anna. "They have no idea what they've started, do they?" Anna shook her head. "They think they know us based on their studies, but they missed the most important thing about humans." "What's that?" Jack asked. "We never forget, and we never, ever forgive." The ship jumped to faster than light speed, carrying with it the first real spark of resistance, and the beginning of the Vex's worst nightmare. 5 years after escaping Outpost 7, Jack Walker stood at the viewport of what his people now called Haven, a massive asteroid they had hollowed out in a dense field where Vex scanners struggled to penetrate. His reflection showed a man hardened by years of fighting, with a long scar running down his right cheek from a close encounter with a Vex patrol. "General Walker," a voice called from behind him. "The new ships are ready for inspection." Jack turned to face Mike, a young man who had been just a teenager when they rescued him from a labor camp 2 years ago. "I told you to stop calling me General." Mike grinned. "The people need a leader with a title, and you've earned it." Jack sighed but followed Mike through the carved stone corridors of Haven. What had started with a single stolen ship had grown into something no one could have imagined. They now had over 500 humans living in the asteroid base, and a growing fleet of ships, some stolen, some built from salvaged parts. The large cavern that served as their hangar was bustling with activity. 3 Vex ships sat in various stages of modification, their sleek lines now bristling with additional weapons and equipment. Anna Reed stood next to one of the ships, directing a team as they installed what looked like a new kind of engine. When she saw Jack, she handed her tablet to an assistant and walked over. "What do you think?" she asked, gesturing to the ships. "We've replicated the cloaking system on all 3. They can now hide human brainwave patterns from Vex scanners for up to 72 hours. Jack nodded approvingly. "Your work is amazing, Anna. 5 years ago, we were swinging pickaxes in a mine. Now we're building a fleet that can actually hurt them." Anna's eyes shone with pride, but there was something else there too, a hardness that came from years of fighting for survival. "I have something else to show you." In the lab. Anna's lab was a marvel of human ingenuity. Equipment salvaged from a dozen different sources had been repurposed, modified, and combined in ways the Vex would never have imagined. "We had visitors yesterday, while you were on the raid," Anna said, activating a holographic display. "Not human." The image showed 3 beings unlike any Jack had seen before. One appeared to be made entirely of water, held in a roughly humanoid shape by a thin force field. Another looked insectoid, with a hard exoskeleton and multiple limbs. The third was crystalline, with light pulsing through its transparent body. "What are they?" Jack asked, studying the images carefully. "Allies," Anna replied. "Or at least potential allies. They call themselves the Mera, the Krell, and the Lithians. Each of their worlds was conquered by the Vex before they came to Earth." Jack's eyes widened. "How did they find us?" "They've been hiding and watching, just like we have. When we started hitting Vex supply ships, they noticed. It took them 2 years to track us down." Anna's face grew serious. "Jack, they say the Vex have conquered dozens of worlds. We're just the latest." Jack studied the strange beings more carefully. "Can we trust them?" "I think so. They hate the Vex as much as we do. Maybe more." The Vex have been controlling their worlds for over a century. A century of oppression. Jack could hardly imagine it. What do they want from us? To join forces. They have knowledge about Vex systems and weaknesses that we don't. And they're interested in our ability to resist Vex mind scanning. They think if we work together, we might actually have a chance to fight back. Not just raid and hide, but really fight. The meeting took place in Haven's largest chamber. Jack sat at a table with Anna and their top lieutenants, facing the 3 alien representatives. Despite years of fighting the Vex, Jack still felt a moment of unease facing truly alien beings. The water creature spoke first, its voice creating ripples across its liquid surface. I am Tidal, speaker for the Mera. We have watched your attacks on the Vex. You fight differently than any species we have encountered. The insectoid creature clicked its mandibles. I am Skitter of the Krell. Your tactics are unpredictable, chaotic. The Vex cannot calculate your movements. The crystal being pulsed with light as it spoke, its voice sounding like chimes. I am Facet of the Lithians. We bring knowledge of Vex technology. You bring the spirit of resistance. Together, we may accomplish what none could alone. Jack looked at each of them in turn. The Vex took everything from us. Our world, our freedom, our future. We don't fight for glory or power. We fight because we remember what they did. And we will never stop until they pay for it. The 3 aliens exchanged looks that Jack couldn't quite interpret. This concept of revenge is not common among our peoples, Tidal said. We fight to regain freedom. You fight because you will not forgive. It is fascinating. And powerful, added Skitter. The Vex do not understand it. They cannot predict actions based on such emotion. Facet pulsed with bright light. We have intelligence about a major Vex operation. A supply depot near what you call Mars. It contains technology and resources that could help our cause. Jack leaned forward, instantly interested. Tell me more. 1 month later, Jack stood on the bridge of the largest ship in their fleet. A former Vex cruiser they had renamed Vengeance. Around it flew 5 smaller ships, each carrying a mixed crew of humans and their new alien allies. All ships report ready, Anna said from her station. Cloaking systems active. Jack nodded, feeling the weight of what they were about to do. This would be no simple raid. This would be a statement. The first coordinated attack against a major Vex installation. Send the message to all ships, Jack ordered. Operation Payback begins now. The small fleet moved silently toward the massive Vex supply depot orbiting Mars. Security was heavy, but they had planned for that. The Mera provided water-based stealth technology that confused Vex sensors. The Krell brought their knowledge of Vex security protocols. The Lithians offered crystal technology that could disrupt Vex communications. As they approached the outer defense perimeter, Jack thought about how far they had come. From a single stolen shuttle to this moment, the real beginning of the war to take back their worlds. For Earth, Jack said quietly. And for all the worlds they took. The first shots fired, brilliant streaks of energy slicing through space toward the unsuspecting Vex facility. The element of surprise was complete. As alarms blared on the Vex station and defense ships scrambled, Jack gave the order for the second phase of the attack. On every Vex communication channel, a message began to play, repeated in every language of every conquered world. The Vex Empire has fallen. You just don't know it yet. We are coming. We remember what you did. We will never forgive. We will never stop. The message that would soon spread fear throughout the Vex Empire had a simple signature. From humanity, with love. The successful raid on the Vex supply depot had changed everything. In the 3 months that followed, the Resistance, now calling themselves the Alliance, had grown stronger by the day. New ships, new weapons, and most importantly, new hopes spread through the ranks. Jack stood in the command center of Haven, looking at the holographic map of the Mars colony. Once a promising human settlement, It had been transformed by the Vex into a massive harvesting operation. Thousands of humans were held there, forced to work in terrible conditions. The intel from our last raid confirms it, Anna said, pointing to several structures on the map. The Vex are using Mars as their main processing center for Earth resources, and as a laboratory for their experiments on humans. Jack's jaw tightened. How many of our people are held there? At least 10,000, Anna replied. Maybe more. Mike, now Jack's trusted lieutenant, shook his head. It's too heavily defended. Even with our new ships and allies, a direct assault would be suicide. Jack studied the map more carefully. Then we don't attack directly. We use what the Vex don't understand about us. Which is? Mike asked. Jack smiled grimly. Patience, sacrifice, and the human talent for making the impossible possible. 2 weeks later, a small Vex patrol ship detected an unusual energy signature near Phobos, one of Mars' moons. When they investigated, they found a damaged human vessel drifting in space, its life support systems failing. The Vex commander ordered the ship captured and its crew taken to the Mars colony for processing. This was standard procedure. All human technology was to be studied. All humans interrogated for information about the growing resistance. What the Vex didn't know was that the 4 humans they captured, Jack, Anna, Mike, and Tom, had allowed themselves to be taken. Hidden beneath their skin were microscopic communication devices developed by the Lithians, undetectable by Vex scanners. Prisoner processing complete, announced the mechanical voice as Jack was pushed into a large cell already crowded with humans. His hands were bound with energy cuffs, and a control collar had been placed around his neck. Standard Vex procedure. Jack looked around the cell, making eye contact with several people who subtly nodded. The message had spread ahead of their arrival. The Mars resistance was real, and they were ready. That night, when the Vex guards were at their minimum, Jack pressed his tongue against the roof of his mouth in a specific pattern, activating the hidden communication device. Phase 1 complete, he whispered, knowing his words would be transmitted to the Alliance fleet hiding on the far side of Phobos. We're inside. Beginning Phase 2. Outside the Mars colony, hidden by the combined cloaking technologies of the Mera, Krell, and Lithians, 5 Alliance ships moved silently into position. On the bridge of the lead ship, now commanded by title of the Mera, tension was high. Human tactics are strange, Skitter of the Krell commented, his mandibles clicking nervously. To allow your leaders to be captured. It is their way. Facet of the Lithians responded, crystal body pulsing with light. They call it leading from the front. Their warriors follow not because they must, but because they believe. Signal received, called out a human technician. General Walker has confirmed they're inside and beginning Phase 2. Title's watery form rippled with what might have been anxiety. Then we proceed as planned. All ships, prepare for synchronized attack on my mark. Inside the Mars colony, chaos erupted precisely at midnight. In 6 different sections, small explosions damaged power systems, communication arrays, and security doors. Alarms blared as Vex guards rushed to contain the situation. In the confusion, Jack and his team made their move. The control collars, which they had spent weeks learning how to disable, fell from their necks. The energy cuffs, vulnerable to a specific frequency that Anna had discovered, deactivated with a soft click. Now, Jack shouted, and the cell erupted into action. Prisoners overpowered the few guards who came to investigate, taking their weapons and freeing more humans. Jack led one group toward the command center, while Anna headed for the power core. Mike and Tom each took teams toward the landing bays and weapon systems. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. Jack called out to the growing army of freed prisoners. We're fighting for Earth, for everyone the Vex have ever hurt. They think they know us. They think they can predict us. Let's show them how wrong they are. A cheer went up from the humans as they surged forward, years of suppressed rage fueling their attack. In orbit around Mars, The Alliance fleet began its attack the moment Jack's signal came through. The Vex defense ships, suddenly forced to deal with attacks from both inside the colony and from space, were caught in disarray. Their command structure is breaking down. Tidal observed as the Vex ships moved in seemingly random patterns. They cannot adapt to multiple simultaneous threats. The humans call it shock and awe. Faceit explained. They attack not just the body, but the mind. On every Vex communication channel, the same message played on repeat. Humans never forget. Humans never forgive. The battle for the Mars colony raged for 3 days. The Vex, unused to an enemy that would sacrifice and endure so much, struggled to counter the human tactics. When they adapted to one approach, the humans would change to another. When they thought they had contained one threat, 3 more would appear. On the 4th day, as Jack fought his way to the main control room, an announcement echoed through the Vex communication system. Attention all Vex forces. This is Admiral Cerro of the Vex High Command. I have been dispatched with the battlecruiser Dominion to resolve the situation on Mars. All forces will fall under my direct command upon my arrival in 26 hours. Jack smiled grimly as he heard the message. The Vex were sending their best, a sign that they were truly frightened. He activated his communication device. All teams, we have a new deadline. We need to secure the colony before reinforcements arrive. Anna's voice came back, breathless but determined. The power core is ours. I've locked out all Vex control systems. Landing bays secured, Mike reported. We're bringing in our people now. Weapon systems under our control, Tom added. We're turning their own defenses against the remaining Vex ships. Jack looked out a viewport at the red Martian landscape, the first piece of familiar territory that humans had reclaimed in 8 long years of occupation. Send word to all Alliance ships, he ordered. Mars is nearly ours, but our real fight is just beginning. As the Dominion approached, Jack knew they faced their greatest test yet. But for the first time since the invasion, humans were standing on their own soil, looking up at the stars not as prisoners, but as warriors ready to take back what was theirs. Let them come, Jack whispered. We'll be ready. 1 year after the liberation of Mars, the war had changed dramatically. What began as a small resistance had grown into an interstellar revolution. Dozens of worlds had risen up against their Vex overlords, inspired by the human victory on Mars. Anna Reed stood on the bridge of the Alliance flagship, now named Freedom, looking at the tactical display. Since Jack's presumed death during the battle with the Dominion, she had reluctantly stepped into his role as leader of the human forces. Admiral Reed, a young officer said, approaching with a data tablet. The Krell fleet reports 3 more Vex outposts have surrendered without a fight. Anna nodded, still not used to her new title. That makes 17 this month. The Vex are running scared. The battle that had claimed Jack's life had become legendary. When Admiral Cerro arrived with the Dominion, the newly liberated Mars colony had seemed doomed. The massive battlecruiser had technology far beyond anything the Alliance possessed. In a desperate move, Jack had led a small team to board the Dominion while Anna coordinated an attack from outside. They had succeeded in sabotaging the ship's main weapons and engines, but the Dominion's self-destruct sequence had activated. Jack had ordered his team to evacuate, while he stayed behind to ensure the ship moved away from Mars before exploding. His last words over the comm had been simple. Remember why we fight. No one had seen him since, and the Alliance had moved forward, carrying his memory as a banner. "Ma'am," called out the communications officer, interrupting Anna's thoughts. "We're receiving a strange signal. It's coming from deep within Vex space." Anna frowned. "Put it through." A burst of static filled the speakers, then cleared to reveal a voice Anna had never expected to hear again. "Alliance ships, this is Jack Walker. Authentication code Sierra Tango 794. I am alive, and on the Vex homeworld. Repeat, I am on the Vex homeworld." The bridge fell silent. Anna's heart pounded in her chest. "Jack," she whispered. Then, more firmly. Verify authentication. The computer confirmed what seemed impossible. It was really him. Jack, how? We thought you were dead. Where have you been? What happened? His voice came through, weaker now. No time to explain. I've discovered something critical. The Vex High Council is preparing a final solution against all rebellion. You need to bring the fleet here. Now. To the Vex homeworld. That's suicide. Anna protested. Trust me, Jack's voice urged. I've disabled their main defensive grid. You have a 48-hour window. I'm sending coordinates. The transmission cut off abruptly. Mike, now Anna's second-in-command, shook his head. It could be a trap. Anna stared at the coordinates on the screen. It's Jack. I know it is. And if it is, Tidal added, his watery form rippling with excitement, this could be our chance to end the war completely. Anna took a deep breath. Signal all Alliance ships. We're going to the heart of the Vex Empire. 3 days later, the largest fleet ever assembled outside of Vex control entered the home system of their oppressors. More than 200 ships from a dozen liberated worlds moved in perfect formation toward the gleaming blue-white planet that had spawned the empire that had caused so much suffering. As Jack had promised, the outer defense grid was offline. The few Vex ships they encountered seemed confused, disorganized. Something's wrong, Anna said, studying the tactical display. This is too easy. Look, called out an officer, pointing to the main view screen. A massive structure was visible in orbit around the Vex homeworld. A ring-shaped station that pulsed with energy. That wasn't in any of our intelligence reports, Mike said. Before Anna could respond, a familiar voice came over the comm system. Alliance fleet, hold position. This is Jack Walker. A small shuttle launched from the ring station, heading toward the Alliance flagship. When Jack walked onto the bridge, Anna could hardly believe her eyes. He was thinner, with new scars, and his left arm had been replaced with what looked like Vex technology. But his eyes still burned with the same determination, she remembered. Jack, she started, then found herself unable to continue. He smiled briefly, then turned serious. There's no time. I need to tell you what I've learned. The bridge crew gathered around as Jack activated a holographic display. When the Dominion exploded, I was captured by a secret faction within the Vex. Scientists who disagreed with the High Council's policies. They kept me alive because they were fascinated by humans. During my captivity, I discovered the truth. The hologram showed Earth and several other planets. The Vex didn't attack Earth because they thought we were dangerous. They attacked because they were afraid. Their predictive models showed that of all the species they had encountered, humans would eventually surpass them. Our adaptability, our creativity, our capacity for both compassion and violence. It terrified them. Anna stared at the display. So all of this, all the suffering, was because they were scared of what we might become. Jack nodded grimly. And now they're even more afraid. That ring station is their final solution. A weapon designed to send a pulse that will kill any being with our specific neural pattern. Not just humans, but any species that could potentially evolve like us. How long do we have? Mike asked. Hours, at most. But I've infiltrated their systems. I can get us to the High Council chamber. Jack's eyes met Anna's. This ends today, one way or another. The final battle was fought not with massive fleets, but with a small strike team. Jack led Anna, Mike, and representatives from each allied species through the corridors of the Vex Central Command. The confusion Jack had created in their systems allowed them to reach the High Council chamber with minimal resistance. When they burst through the doors, they found 7 Vex leaders huddled around a control panel. At their center stood Commander Tiro and High Commander Nex, the same Vex who had overseen Earth's invasion 8 years earlier. Walker, Nex said, his black eyes widening in what might have been fear. You should not be here. You remember me, Jack said, stepping forward. Good. I want you to remember the face of the species you tried to destroy. Thoreau moved protectively in front of the other council members. You cannot stop what has been set in motion. The pulse will activate in minutes. Jack smiled coldly. Actually, I already stopped it. While I was your guest, I learned more about your systems than you ever intended. The pulse has been recalibrated. Nex made a sound of disbelief. Impossible. If it activates now, Jack continued, it will affect only Vex neural patterns. Your entire species, wiped out in an instant. Poetic, don't you think? The council chamber fell silent. But, Jack said, his voice softer now, that's the difference between us. You attacked out of fear. We fight for justice. The pulse has actually been disabled completely. Your fate is now in your hands. Anna stepped forward to stand beside Jack. Surrender. Withdraw from all conquered worlds. End your empire, or we will end it for you. Nex looked from Jack to Anna, then to the representatives of the other species. What he saw in her eyes seemed to finally make him understand. We surrender, he said, his voice barely audible. 3 months later, Jack and Anna stood on a hillside overlooking what had once been Chicago. The rebuilding had begun, but Earth's recovery would take decades. Do you think they'll honor the agreement? Anna asked. Jack watched as a group of children played in the distance, the first generation that would grow up free. They will, he said confidently, because now they understand what they should have feared all along, not our technology or our resources. He smiled. It was our memory, our resolve, our ability to rise from the ashes, and most of all, our capacity for both revenge and mercy. As the sun set over the scared but healing earth, Jack took Anna's hand. The universe had changed forever, and humanity had led the way, not just in how to fight, but in how to forgive when the fighting was done.